All right. Well, thanks, Tony. Welcome to this month's buildingSMART USA webinar on openBIM for FHWA's digital delivery national deployment. I'm Will Sharp, Senior Vice President at HDR, and also co-chair of the buildingSMART USA Roads and Bridges Industry Committee. And I've also been supported today by Tony Ranella. You heard from Tony a few minutes ago. Tony is with SBI and our Education Director at buildingSMART USA. A little bit about our speakers today. Our speakers are James Gray and Alan Melley. James Gray currently serves as the Construction Technology Program Manager and the UAS Program Manager within the Office of Infrastructure for the Federal Highway Administration. Since joining FHWA in 2006, James has held previous positions as a project engineer and construction operations engineer within the Eastern Federal Lands Division. In his current role, James is responsible for the Advanced Digital Construction Management Systems Program, or ADCMS. This program has awarded over $50 million to the state DOTs to advance BIM concepts and accelerate digital delivery efforts. James is a licensed professional engineer in the state of Michigan. We also have Alan Melley with us with Pennsylvania DOT. Alan Melley graduated from the University of Pittsburgh with a Bachelor's of Science in Civil Engineering and is a registered professional engineer in Pennsylvania. He's been at PennDOT for over 25 years, and he currently serves as the chief of the digital delivery section within Pennsylvania DOT. His section is responsible for the development and implementation of PennDOT's Digital Delivery Directive Initiative. Alan has been one of our industry leaders in digital delivery. He often speaks at national conferences. It seems like I see Alan many times through the year. And he's also had the opportunity to serve on many national and international committees, including the AASHTO Joint Technical Committee on Electronic Engineering Standards. So today's webinar includes an overview of FHWA's digital project delivery efforts, including the ADCMS program. I can tell you this program is driving innovation in surface transportation across the U.S. by leveraging digital technologies and processes across the project lifecycle, from planning through design, construction, maintenance, and asset management. Alan and I were both fortunate to be part of an FHWA ADCMS national collaboration event that James hosted a few weeks ago that highlighted all the ADCM efforts going on across the U.S. Several of these efforts are focused on implementing openBIM to enhance interoperability. So in today's presentation, James Gray will provide an overview of the ADCMS program, and Alan Melley will review PennDOT's efforts with ADCMS and their efforts to implement openBIM on several projects using the buildingSMART IFC 4.3 open standard, and also the standards developed by the AASHTO BIM for Bridges and Structures Transportation Pooled Fund project. So with that, a few other introductory slides here. Let's see. This is part of the buildingSMART USA Education Committee webinar series. We typically hold these webinars the second Wednesday of every month. This one, due to scheduling conflicts, was moved to Tuesday. And our plan is to provide speakers who can share insights into the benefits of using open standards for both building and infrastructure projects, and also highlight opportunities for you to get more involved with buildingSMART. Now, this is a QR code if you want to go to a recording of all the webinars that we've had, as well as upcoming webinars. We also, for questions and comments, please use the chat button on your Zoom screen for that. Tony is going to help manage the questions and comments. What our plan is that Tony will work with you to reply directly to you with text chat, and we'll offer you an opportunity to unmute your mic and join in the discussion and ask your questions. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to James and Alan for their presentation.
All right, thank you, Will, for the introduction there and some background on why we're here today. And do appreciate that the point here is collaboration is important. That's why we look at BIM and the idea to not keep generating data over and over again. If we generate the data, can we share it? Can we reuse it? So that collaboration of data, we carry forward into collaboration among people, among states. And so my presentation is going to be kind of framed around a couple of different maps. And the reason for that, so you can kind of see where everybody's at, see that who's involved in this, see that it is a national effort within the United States to really advance BIM as just a mainstream way of doing business within surface transportation. And one of the big drivers of that is efficiency and the cost of delivering infrastructure projects, the time it takes to design and maintain, and how can we do that more efficiently and effectively, as whether that's through data management that can ultimately lead to better asset decisions, whether that's the intercepting the maintenance at the right time, faster designs, better handoff to construction, better resolution of differing site conditions, the benefits kind of go on and on. So I'm gonna start with a real high level overview, and I will put links in the chat, but as to not try to multitask, talk and type at the same time, I'll put some links in the chat after I'm done talking so you can see where these documents live. I'm not gonna read the entire Federal Highway BIM strategic roadmap to everybody, but I think it's important that you know that there is a national BIM strategic roadmap. If you haven't read it, it does exist. Federal Highway went out. We talked with state DOTs. We went internationally, looked at what other countries had done, so that we're not trying to start from zero. And that's kind of a theme you'll see throughout this, is we're not trying to start and reinvent the wheel in every single state and every single practice for every single type of project we might have. Let's find processes that work, leverage them nationally, leverage them across different program areas so that we can move faster into the digital future. So I'll share the Federal Highway BIM strategic roadmap link, but if you're impatient, you just Google FHWA BIM National Strategic Roadmap, and it'll be the first result that'll pop up. And what we found in that, we did that process, excuse me, between 2020 and 2021 is when we had our publication. And what we found is we had a good bit of progress we needed to make nationally, and that we kind of came up with this nomenclature of crawl, walk, run, fly, right? And to determine where we're at as a country, individual states, so we could kind of find out a stepwise process. We weren't going to just start on day one and be fully BIM ready, and there were going to be no workforce issues, no software issues, no connectivity, no contractual issues. We know that there's going to be issues at every step of that, so let's try to break it down, nice stepwise approach. And that's kind of the key to the national strategic roadmap, is to develop a stepwise process. So I'm finally getting to why this map here. Well, we stood up with state DOTs 2 pooled funds because we knew that it was going to be a lot of steps, a lot of work to move through this process of not BIM to BIM. And we needed to do it together because that's the only way that there was resources and momentum that we could get at a national scale to do that. So you look, there's 2 major pooled funds. There's the BIM for bridges and structures and the BIM for infrastructure. Now, if you look, that's a lot of the states in the country are in one or the other, or more impressively, both. And there is some common overlap, right? At high level themes, they're both advancing BIM concepts. But the BIM for bridges is getting very into the details and developing the data dictionaries and the information delivery manuals, the things of that nature specific to bridges. There's a lot of elements that go into bridges. You have to have common definitions for what all of those things are. And that's building out the IFC data dictionaries for bridge in particular. And that gets even more complicated because not every bridge project is the same. There's new bridge construction, there's bridge rehabilitations, and everything in between. So it's moving different bridge type through bridge type, but they've completed the data dictionary and information delivery models. I'm trying very hard to not use a lot of acronyms here for a new bridge construction, and now it's carrying that forward to different types of bridge classifications as they move forward in that pooled fund. And now the BIM for infrastructure, as you can imagine, is everything else. And that gets very complicated, from curb and gutter to guardrail to the pavement surface itself to geotechnical considerations, MSE walls, all of that. So it's a very large portfolio of assets to try to define in a data dictionary that can be used by all of the states. But that's the goal, is to come up with an IFC data dictionary that can be used by all the states for all of our asset classifications. So that is where the pooled funds are kind of at. And I'm going to ask Alan to move me forward to the ADCMS grants. And you see solid overlap, but some new states that are involved there. And that was, $100 million came out through the Infrastructure Improvement and Jobs Act, the Federal Highway Reauthorization, to address the issue of digital delivery. Again, how do we increase safety, project efficiency, reduce our costs on that double, triple, quadruple data collection that we're doing on projects, because our systems don't talk between design, construction, and asset management. So it's a competitive grant program that to date over 50 states, over 50 applications from states, not over 50 states, have submitted applications for this, and there's been 18 awards made over the last 3 fiscal years of funding, 2 fiscal years of open rounds. And just to give an idea of the diversity of the project types that are out there, I'm going to say, California is developing what I'll call the Google Translate for data standards. So if a state is using one design authoring software and the construction community is using a different one, how do you communicate that between each other, right? So you have your surveyors might be using different data collection tools and things of that nature. So how do you get all of these systems that hold data? And then making it even more complex, how you define things in construction might be defined in pay items, and survey it maybe survey feature codes, and design it might be layers. So, figuring out a way for us all to speak the same language. So Connecticut is looking at, document management systems, and that kind of neat approach they took there is building Office 365 suite of forms to do all of their standard work. So standard templates they can share with any state DOT that kind of wants them, and use the same document management system. And Delaware is using the telemetric data that's on a lot of construction equipment to feed an AI to write draft inspector daily reports, so that the inspector on a construction project can do the things that is important for the human to be out in the field doing, and not necessarily spend all their time in an office trying to write up a report of what they did that day, kind of give them that first shot at a report. But some of the big things we're looking at here, and what's probably more germane for the audience here, is things that PennDOT's doing. And I won't get into what PennDOT's doing because Alan will be able to cover that in more detail than I will. But if we're looking at things like Utah and Washington, Minnesota and Iowa, it's looking at how to classify the data and how to build projects. And one of the things that we're looking at throughout the entire ADCMS program is needs to be open data standards. Can't figure out the say API connections between every potential software type that we could come across to do any aspect of infrastructure planning, construction, and maintenance. It's too cumbersome and always changing. So how do we work in an open data standard environment? And that's key. We didn't specify the IFC, but IFC has been the most selected data standard because it exists already. So let's not try to reinvent a new data standard when one exists, and leverage that to move out through all of throughout this requirement for open data standards for all of these grant programs. And as you can see, there's a large geographic diversity of projects from the ADCMS program, and all of these also have that BIM strategic roadmap as a guiding principle, right? Ultimately, we want to get to that end state of BIM. All of these states kind of are looking at different pieces of it. So I give another example here, not to try to cover the full depth of any one of these individual projects, although I'm sure there's some interest, and I'd be happy to talk more depth if any of this piques anybody's interest. And it's another point where I'll drop a link to the full project descriptions that's on Federal Highway's ADCMS website. But again, for the impatient viewers, FHWA and ADCMS, I don't think any other website combines those acronyms together to get you to the website where you can see the full summary of these projects. So on this as well, we'll see that California, Oregon, and Washington are actually have a joint project where they're looking at different pieces of the same problem. And it's what we found throughout the multiple rounds of ADCMS, kind of look at, okay, are there commonalities that we're seeing in the proposals? Not necessarily the awards, because we don't want to solve the same problem 10 different times. We have to look at different problems that need to be solved. We see that there's two common themes. The number one common theme, the most pressing issue we see in ADCMS grant proposals, is the common data environment. We need our systems to talk to each other. If that doesn't work, if on the back end of everything there's no communication link, it falls apart pretty quickly, which again is inherent the underpinning of BIM. If the data is not moving from one system to the next, you don't have BIM, you don't have this data workflow. So that's again the number one thing that we've seen is common data environment. Open data standards are integral to that common data environment being a viable solution. So then the second highest need that we've seen on these is data collection standards, which is not what we had thought when we started the ADCMS program. We kind of had an idea that common data environment would be important, and that has borne itself out to be true. But the second one was data collection standards. And it makes sense if you're not starting with data that's been normalized, that's been controlled, that's been collected to a standard. Now you try to share it within a standard, you're getting a very false sense of security for the data quality. So that's kind of the newest pooled fund that is going to be kicking off any month now. They just had the minimum contribution amount met in June. Will be on data collection standards. So that's a new pooled fund that'll be in this space to look at, okay, how are we collecting the data in the first place? So we're starting with high quality data, managing it through a common data environment, through open data standards. When we want to make informed decisions, we know we can rely on what we're pulling from the systems. And so with that, Alan, can you pull up the last map that we had? And so that's, again, now you start to overlay everything that's going on between ADCMS and the two BIM pooled funds, and this doesn't include the new data collection pooled fund, which will color in some more of those states. And you can see it is truly a national effort. We're touching every part of the country, geographically, economically, scale of programs from smaller DOTs to heavily populated, immature DOTs and everything in between. And I think that's going to be critical as we look through this system. Ultimately, it's not going to be the state DOTs or federal highway that are coding these all of the systems we need to work. So if we can speak with one voice to the major software vendors that these are the standards we're going to use, this is how we need these systems to work, I think that will help accelerate the progress towards a full national BIM deployment, which is the ultimate goal of this. Again, trying to move a lot of small steps forward towards it. And with all of that sort of national context, I'm hoping that it'll be more impactful if we can go into what Pennsylvania DOT has done to see how all of this national efforts manifests for state DOT, trying to take the lead on several of these efforts, try to implement parts that they are able to glean from other efforts, and again, help share out nationally so that we're all building off of each other rather than starting to build from scratch. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Alan to walk us through Pennsylvania DOT's program.
Alrighty, thanks, James. Okay, appreciate the opportunity to speak today on our efforts moving openBIM forward. So I always like to start off, and simplify what are we actually really trying to do with digital delivery, and it's really looking to, digitize those workflows that we have. It's transferring the data from design to construction, construction to asset management, and to be able to utilize that data in that life cycle of the project. Now, as we go through that, there's a lot of challenges that we have to get to that point and to be able to achieve those goals. Implementing these changes in our daily workflow is complex, no doubt. There's a lot of training, a lot of education that goes along with this to really move this forth. And looking at managing that pace of change that we're going through, because this is a huge change compared to what it is our users are accustomed to at this point. So we're ultimately trying to connect that data seamlessly, eliminating these silos that we currently have and moving towards that single source of truth. And as we move that data and have accountable individuals for that data, we have moving this from one part to the next, and the communication between our different areas of the business has increased substantially, moving towards this model-based delivery. Construction talking to design can no longer throw it over the wall and say construction will worry about that. They're involved through construction. But to get there, I mean, this takes a lot of effort. So as we are working towards that ultimate goal of delivering these projects completely digitally, AASHTO Joint Technical Committee on Engineering Electronic Standards developed the 5 different layers. Level 1 being that transition from 2D to 3D, and then delivering a 3D for information only. And then as we're delivering 3D with contractual documents, then you get to level 4, where you're delivering that 3D model as a contractual document and no plans whatsoever. But then that holy grail of being able to reach level 5, where we're collecting the digital as-built from, delivering that 3D model. So where is everybody, nationwide? Because we all want to get to level 5. We're all at different locations right now, all, looking to get to, that level 5. So the map that is pulled together here, you can see that there are only a few states that are at level 4. Then we get down to 3, 2, and then there's a lot of plans going on across the country. So there's a lot of R&D, rip off and deploy, which is absolutely wonderful. We use stuff that others have developed, bring it into Pennsylvania, adjust it for what we need and utilize that. And we share everything that we're developing as well. So this is a very collaborative environment to to move digital delivery along. So PennDOT started back in 2019 with that goal of by 2025 being able to deliver these projects digitally. Everything contained within that CAD model and no longer delivering those those plan sheets. We have met that goal of being able to deliver a project digitally. Now it's not our entire program, but it is we do have that project out there that we're able to now have the ability to deliver these projects. We set out with that roadmap of small incremental pieces to ultimately achieve that goal. As we went through these small projects that were hybrid projects, that level level 2, level 3, to get to the point where we're now able to deliver a level 4 project completely digitally. But as you can see in the 25-26 timeframe, we have 2 projects that move forth the open data standards, which is the IFC file format. The department has always had the goal from the beginning of our initiative that we want to be data agnostic. We do not want to dictate what our consultants or our contractors have to use. We may have a platform that we use internally, but we do not want to be in the position to dictate what everybody else has to use. So that's where IFC and the open data standards really played a big role for us. And with the introduction of the ADCMS grants, we felt that was a great opportunity to move forth the IFC files into multiple projects. And I'll talk about the projects here momentarily. But as we continue to advance, we're starting to roll out more projects over the subsequent years here as we continue on. Hearing from those initial pilots and initial projects, the contractors are using different programs than what we use internally at the department. So open data standards is going to play a big role in this transfer of data. So that unified, streamlined approach to workflows, it's a consistent, repeatable process that it does not matter where in the state the contractors are getting this information from, they're able to get it in a unified manner, a standardized fashion. That way, they know what to expect, how to build the processes for their uses. But with PennDOT's ADCMS grant, we're looking to improve that data interoperability, again, to hit that goal of being data agnostic, not dictating what everybody has to use. So, we're looking to improve that export quality from the existing programs we have and to really, advance those model as the legal deliverable projects that we've now, figured out how and develop the process internally to be able to do. Let's take that to the next step. Let's add that next level of complexity to deliver that so our users can, ingest this data in whatever platform they so desire. So like Will said and James said, we're utilizing exactly what the BIM for Bridges and Structures pooled fund has developed on that construction or the design to construction workflow. So we're ultimately putting that into practice to see what works, what doesn't work. Is it going to be perfect? No, probably not. But we're going to get that feedback as we go through these processes with our contractors and so forth to be able to get this information and to be able to provide that feedback to the pooled funds and so forth to be able to advance what they're continuing to develop. So ultimately right now, we're either designing in, a certain platform A, B, or C, providing that same platform all the way through into construction. And then the contractor basically has to use that platform to, incorporate into their workflows. That's not going to be sustainable as far as, being able to utilize just one single platform. So how do we get around that? That's where open data standards comes in. Deliver it via an IFC, work with the validation service, push that off onto construction. They can utilize that in whatever, equipment or whatever software they have. So the two projects that PennDOT has selected to actually move forth with the IFC deliverable is we have the one here on the left is a single span bulb T-beam integral abutment bridge, was designed by JMT. That one is currently advertised for our contractors to bid on. So this one here will provide the IFC files as for information only on this project. Now, the project on the right-hand side, SR6 over French Creek, which is a 2-span steel girder structure, integral abutment. Lead designer was Michael Baker. That project there is getting ready to be advertised here next week. So with the advertisement of that one will be IFC as the contractual document. So they will be the contractual files as we move through this. So working with industry, working with our contractors, we have held multiple meetings in advance of these projects brought the contractors into a meeting to be able to give them the overview of what IFC is, how they can interact with those files, what to expect with these projects. So as we've developed this process, this is not something that we have developed, in a vacuum here at the department. We have worked very closely with the Iowa DOT as well, as we brought a whole group of individuals together. We brought the pooled funds in. We brought, Iowa DOT, PennDOT, the software vendors, and so forth, working together in trying to advance the open data standards in the IFC deliverable. It's been a very, the last, probably year, a little over a year, we've been working very closely together to advance to get to this point where we're now able to deliver these projects. Like I said, they are now advertised, the second one getting ready to be advertised here next week. So they will be in construction here before the end of the year, and actually being constructed here next construction season. So as we advance with that, with these pilot programs and trying to look at these, these approaches, we're really trying to, develop those workflows, develop the technology that we need. And we have to pilot this stuff to be able to advance, and training our users on how to utilize this, how to interact with each of these projects, how to surface that data. And as we've identified different champions across the state, that have embraced this, and not only just individualized champions, we have organizations that are embracing the direction this is going, and reaching out to other districts saying, hey, we want to do your projects digitally as well. Can we change over from the standard 2D deliverable over to a digital deliverable? We see the benefits in what we're doing and how this is affecting the business. And as we continue to do this, we're developing guidelines, documents, and so forth. And we place all of this information out on PennDOT's digital delivery website. Anybody can access this information, free to R&D for your organizations. But there's a lot of terminology in there so that we're all speaking the same language. As we go through these BIM use cases and the modeling workflows and so forth, setting those standards, as we go through. So continuously updating our guidelines to reflect what we've developed, what we've figured out going through this entire process. But, as we continue to advance digital delivery, across the country, it's advancing very quickly. And this can only be done with that additional funding, such as the ADCMS grants, that really play a big role in advancing digital delivery across the country. So it's a very collaborative environment, just like we're doing with the ADCMS grant, and the Iowa DOT have been great partners in moving this forward and working with our vendors, working hand in hand to develop what their product needs to do. Sometimes they're unaware that there's a use case that we're utilizing their software for, and they're adjusting and developing additional workflows to address the problems that we have. They're all at the table as we continue to advance these projects. And going through piloting these projects gives us that ability to train our users, train and educate industry, because this is all new to them as well. And we've taken that opportunity to work with industry going across the state to be able to train our industry on how to get this information. And I always like to say we're developing this as a team, because if it works for the department, that's great, but it's got to be work for everybody else as well for this to be a success. So as we continue to gather that feedback, and we welcome that, good, bad, or indifferent. If it takes me a little bit longer in design to get something that's going to help fabricators save hours and really cut down the chance for errors, let's do that. So it's that collaborative environment of how can we help you, how can we get the data that you need out of this. And as we continue to move forth, this transition is ongoing and continual. Stuff is going to change. So much has changed just over the last 6 months, trying to implement new new technology or new functionality into these projects. But it's all coming from that feedback that we're getting from these various pilots and so forth. But with that, I'll leave you with a quote before we open it up to questions. This was a quote from one of our bridge pilot projects. It was a smaller contractor. He felt it, if this is the future, why not jump in now and learn this? So it was, a very small contractor that built this structure, and by the time we were done with this, he was, ready for another project to start with digital delivery. So with that, I'll turn it back over to Will to open it up for Q&A.